Did you know that human design reveals three primary ways of knowing, three primary forms of intelligence, and only one of them is logical? And yet, we've been taught that logic is the only valid way to know, well, anything. What if you've been taught isn't entirely true? What if you have so much more, so many more intelligences than you realize? What then? Well, let's find out. Let's find out what human design has to say about that, shall we? This is a model from Bolte Taylor, who is a neuroanatomist. You might know her from a TED Talk that she did called My Stroke of Insight, because she actually had a stroke that destroyed a bunch of her left brain. So she got to see what it would be like without having a left brain. It's an incredible TED Talk if you haven't seen it already. It's actually the first TED Talk that went viral. And she talks about, in this latest book that she has, about how actually the left brain has a thinking brain and an emotional brain, and the right brain has a thinking brain and an emotional brain. And so there's not just one thinking center and one emotional center. And according to her, the analytical brain is the thinking brain of the left brain. Okay. And then the part of us that gets afraid is the emotional center of the left brain. Okay. That part that is, kicks in when you're trying to make a decision and you get FOMO, right? Oh no, but if I do this, what about that? What happens if, I'll lose out on this, or I haven't considered everything, right? That's the emotional part of the left brain. Whereas the thinking part of the right brain is actually where we connect with spirit. Okay. This is where we access meditation and meditative state, or the kind of state we just created with that really short little Kriya. We're actually stimulating that so-called thinking center of the right brain, which is not an analytical thinking part, right? It's an intuitive thinking part. And then the emotional part of the right brain is happy, is generally pretty blissed out. I highly encourage you to go and check this out if you don't know her work, because it's really eye-popping. Okay, so there are lots of different types of mind. We tend to think that there's like one mind, like the analytical mind, right? But there's the creative mind and the intuitive mind, which are mapped in human design, which we're going to look at in a second. There's the so-called no mind, which supposedly is the object of meditation. I don't know if I agree with that so much as we want to be able to focus and concentrate our mind so that, and internalize it, right? So that, like, even at the end of that Kriya, I was like, be in the center of your head. So it's not a no mind so much as the ability to focus that thinking part of the right brain, okay, and focus it in the center of your head. It's also called internalizing your mind. And the distinction is it's not jumping around all the time, which is usually what we think of as the mind does, right? It jumps from thought to thought to thought to thought to thought and does all this different stuff, right? Okay. So in human design, the right brain begins in the 64, which is the beginning of the sensing circuit. And you'll see that there are 3 different gates here at the top of the head center. Each of them is connected to one of the 3 ways of knowing in the human design chart. So this is the right brain, even though it's on the left side of the chart, it's actually the right brain. Because if you turn the chart around, it's the 64s over here. I know that can be a little confusing. And here's the whole sensing circuit, okay? Comes down into the ajna, crosses over, goes around the left side of the body and up through the central channel. I don't know that it's always so one way, comes in, crosses over, goes down and up. I think it also comes up and out and around. So sometimes people ask about how the energy flows. I actually think it flows in a variety of different ways, depending on what's going on. But this is basically the sensing circuit, this is our creative brain, right? Because right brain energy is creative. It is intuitive. I consider creativity kind of an aspect of intuition. It is experiential. It's embodied. It's felt through the body, right? It's embodied. It's a felt sense. Okay. Then we've got the 61, and the 61 is actually being lit up in the transit we're in right now. The 61 is the beginning of the knowing circuit. Look how big that circuit is. Okay. It's massive. Look at that. It's the biggest sub-circuit in the chart. It's huge. It runs through both sides of the body, right? So it comes down through that central channel, splits, comes out through both sides of the body and back up through the central channel, right? So we download through the knowing circuit. The knowing circuit is individual circuitry. It's here to be different. It's here to bring change. It does not fit in. This is where our really leading edge innovative ideas come in through this sensing circuit. You guys might be familiar with this 4323, right? Which is the 43 is known as the genius freak gate, right? This is where just super interesting out of the box things come in. Okay. And then we've got the 63, which is the beginning of the logic circuit. And you can see the logic circuit, which is left brain energy, comes in through the left brain, crosses over, comes down the right side of the body and up through the central channel. So you can see that this logic circuit mirrors that of the right brain, right? They're mirrors of each other. So they're actually exactly the same size. So when it comes to just thinking about how much of these different aspects we have just as much creative energy, just as much embodied experiential energy as we do logical and linear and analytical energy. And yet that right brain energy has not been really well acknowledged or appreciated or validated or deemed valuable in Western culture, right? And so part of what we want to do as we are coming to be more whole people is that we want to activate and integrate and explore and eventually embody the energy that comes in through this knowing circuit, right? And then through the sensing circuit. So I want to remind you that you have the entire chart, okay? What's colored in are what I would consider your core energies. And that's the energy that you have ongoing, ready, reliable access to and a consistent, seemingly fixed way of experiencing it. The parts that are white, you've also experienced thousands and thousands of times. It's just that it's not consistent because it changes based on your life experience and who you've been around. But you get to develop your relationship with both the sensing circuit and the knowing circuit, regardless of what your particular definition is. Okay. I really want you to get that, because this sensing circuit, I only have this gate defined in my chart of this whole sensing circuit. And yet, because of my life experience and because of what I've been interested in and drawn to, I have a very deep relationship with the sensing circuit and with embodiment in particular. So as we go through this, I want you to, I'm going to give you an invitation that will help you to kind of work with and explore what is true for you in your design and what has been true for you in your life experience. Okay, so let's take a look at, okay, so this is kind of a left-brained exercise, right? It's working with percentages. But I was like, okay, if we were to actually calculate how much, if we were going to look at kind of the whole intelligence, okay, our whole ways of knowing that's mapped in the human design system, you'll see that intuition in the knowing circuit has the most, right? whereas the sensing circuit, creativity, and logic have the same amount, right? They're relatively similar. Intuition is a bit more, but they're relatively similar. Then we look at, okay, if you take the non-left brain ways of knowing, the intelligences that are not covered in left brain dominance, we put the intuition and creativity together. Well, see, that's 70% of our way of knowing in the world, 70% as opposed to 30%, right? And yet our educational system teaches 90% analysis and maybe, if you're lucky, 10% creativity. I mean, think about when you were in school. Maybe you got lucky and you went to a really great school that operated differently. But I know for me, maybe I had an art class like one afternoon a week. You know, that was like what I got for creativity. There was nothing, no conversation at all about intuition in school, right? Think about your own experience. Like, when did you learn about intuition? Some people are fortunate enough to have had people who were as sensitive to that in their, in their family, right? So I, envious of you if you are, because I certainly did it. I know when I was growing up, my intuition made people uncomfortable. What your experience has been with your creativity and your intuition, have you felt like it was supported by your family of origin, by the community you grew up in, by your schooling and so on? Or is that something that you've had to really kind of seek out and develop on your own, had to find your own mentors or your own training? Because we do need support in these areas. I mean, even though they are innate intelligence in us, there's a lot that we can learn about these, and especially how to activate them, right? And how to work with them. Like, I've been working with these are my paintings. Some people ask me, those are your paintings? Those are my paintings. I've been working with my creativity mentor for almost 20 years. And so I have really worked a lot. And part of the reason I did that is that I did not have a lot of visual capacity on my own. And so I got interested in this because I wanted to build that capacity of mine, but I didn't really have it, but I created it through practice and through having the support of my mentor. Would you like to awaken and activate all of your innate intelligences? Have them all come alive for you to guide and support you? What might become available then, with you living as a whole person? I invite you to join us for Embody Your Human Design to find out.